Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Mission Briefing First Contact, the show where I put my sanity on the line for the sake of new Star Trek. Today we'll be talking about Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 2, called Wedding Bell Blues, or as I'm calling it, Trelane's Terrible Trek Fanfic. Now, just a little context here. I usually first watch the episode and just to get a sense of it, because, first of all, I'm a Star Trek fan. I like watching new episodes of Star Trek. And then I rewatch that episode to get the analysis on point, right? Now, when it comes to this episode, I really didn't want to do the rewatch. That should tell you everything right away. When Strange New Worlds delivers, it really delivers, but when it crashes and burns, it kind of leaves a warp core fragments in your soul. And in a 10 episode season, we don't have time for this nonsense. So, let's dive in. We kick off with a shirtless Spock, because of course we do. I kind of joked back in my mission debrief review of Season 1, Episode 1 that Ethan Peck must have a contract clause about showing skin at least once per season. Well, box is checked. We find out it's been 3 months since the Gorn attack, and just as conveniently that's how long Chapel's been gone studying under, ironically, Dr. Roger Corby. The same Corby who we'll talk about more in the canon section of this review. So Spock is struggling to choose a shirt, even though they're literally the same. And I know what they were trying to do. It was supposed to be cute and funny, but it's not. It feels juvenile. They're writing this version of Spock like a lovesick teenager instead of disciplined Vulcan adult. It's really hard to watch. Meanwhile, the crew is prepping for the Federation Centennial, the 100th year anniversary of its founding, which is kind of a callback to the Captain Archer's legendary but never seen speech. Yeah, thanks for reminding me that we never got to see that. I really do appreciate rubbing that salt in the wound. Now, let's scan this episode for some life signs. There are a few good signals here in the noise. Pike, as always, remains a solid presence, even when the material kinda gets real cringy. Ensign Mount really sells it. His comedic timing during the final speech, he makes it land. Barely, but it lands. The costumes deserve a nod, especially the off-duty outfits. Uhura's look in particular had that fantastic late 60s, early 70s retro futuristic vibe. It is a stylish callback to, that really did feel both grounded in Trek history and was totally wearable. So, there's a subtle but powerful beat when Ortega quietly leaves the party, returns to her training, and sees a Gorn reflection in the glass. That moment, no words, just feelings, it worked. Scotty picking up sensor ghosts might be a throwaway moment to some, but if you ever played Star Trek Online, your ears must have perked up. We all know that ghosts on sensors always mean trouble. And yes, there was a hint, just a spark of something good in a growing friendship between Spock and Lon. Star Trek needs more platonic male-female friendships. It's a rare and valuable thing in media right now, but unfortunately, I'm just terrified the writers are going to twist this into some dumb love triangle later. But we'll get to that. So, like I said, let's talk wins first. The dancing scene between Spock and Lon had potential. It echoed that sweet moment from TNG where Crusher is teaching Data to dance, right? And Lon's story about once wanting to be a ballerina, it was genuinely charming. It was nice to see another side of her. Ortega Zambero, her baby brother, brought some levity. Their sibling banter felt real. And Uhura, who was clearly flirting with Beto, added a fun little twist. Ortega's noticing that and reacting like a slightly overprotective sister. It was hilarious without crossing a line. The newbie ensign in a sickbay and his interaction with Una had some spark too. That interaction felt like the crew had a rhythm again, until of course they remind us that Una is still giving her blood to Captain Batal like canon doesn't exist. And yes, Dr. Corby's entrance was handled decently. Well, more on him we'll talk about in the canon section of the review, but at least that moment had some restraint, unlike so many other parts of the show. Now buckle up, because this is where we enter the actual danger zone. Trelane is Q. Yep, they did it. The long-standing fan theory that Trelane from TOS was secretly a Q, officially canonized. And not only that, he's the son of that Q. You know, the John Delancey Q, the one we know from TNG and Voyager and even DS9. And of course, it was voiced by him, and it's just why. In a full-length season with room to play, maybe. But in a tightly packed 10-episode arc, this is indulgent fluff masquerading as a deep lore. And it really adds confusion. Are we supposed to believe this Q Jr. is Q Jr. from Voyager? Or a different Q child? Are Qs just out there spawning chaos goblins? Still, there's something worse happening in this episode. Like, the whole Q thing, it was bad. But the thing that was worse was Spock's characterization. They've turned Spock into a little hormonal mess who checks his hair, stares longingly into mirrors, and gets drunk off Q cocktails. He punches people to wake up from the fantasy weddings. He gives recycled vows that unlock emotional awakenings. It's painful. And the wedding plot itself, just pure holodeck nonsense. Spock wakes up next to a chapel. Reality has been altered. The Trelane is disguised as a wedding planner. Dr. Corby then gets turned into a dog. Reality bending hijinks ensue. None of it lands. Eventually, Chapel breaks the spell when she hears Spock recite the lines that she once said about Corby. That's the big love moment? Not great. Trelane then throws a tantrum because Corby was poking around Q ruins and he's too handsome. Yep, that's the conflict. And finally, John Delancey's Q shows up to scold his misbehaving son and take him home, which is a direct echo of the Squire of Gothos, where Trelane's parents showed up to end the same thing. Except this time, they've jammed him into the Q continuum, and it just does not work. Now, when it comes to the canon signals, we have Dr. Roger Corby, who was portrayed in Strange New Worlds by Killian O'Sullivan, originally played by Michael Strong in TOS, in Season 1, Episode 7, What Are Little Girls Made Of? Canonically, he uploads his mind into an android and dies on S03. His relationship with Chapel, let's just say, ends badly, and this appearance kind of lines up if you squint. Trelane was first introduced in TOS Season 1, Episode 17, The Squire of Gothos, played by William Campbell. Now he was played by Rhys Darby, and officially is tied to Q Continuum. Whether you think that's a brilliant or blasphemy, it's now canon. We got Censor Ghosts, which is kind of a long time Star Trek Online red flag. Now here's the thing. I want to like Strange New Worlds. I really do. Because when it works so well. But this episode wasn't one of those moments. Instead of the rich character exploration or sci-fi intrigue, we got a hyperactive wedding romp hosted by a tantrum-prone, omnipotent toddler. And once again, Spock is the writer's emotional punching bag. Chapel gets sidelined, canons get twisted into knots, and I have to ask, for what? To canonize a theory that didn't need to be canonized? Yes, there were moments, like La'an's ballerina dream, Pike holding the bridge of this mess together, Ortega's showing real vulnerability, but that potential keeps getting buried under layers of ridiculous. If the writers just had committed to telling a story about post-Gorn trauma or a crew celebrating gone wrong, it might have worked. But Q babies and fantasy weddings, nah, not for me. And as for that glimmer of friendship between La'an and Spock, I want it to develop into something meaningful. I'm just scared that this writing team is going to ship it straight into melodrama, and we're gonna get some stupid love triangle. Now, the final verdict: a few decent performances, great costume work. Really, that's like the most prominent thing from this episode for me. A handful of character moments that mattered, but mostly this was kind of chaotic, canon warping detour that felt like it belonged in a totally different show. If you made it through both the episode and this review, thank you for staying with me. If you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And tell me your thoughts on this episode. Unless you're actually planning the wedding in the Q Continuum, in that case, I'm busy. So, until next time, stay curious like you, honorable like a Klingon, logical like the Vulcan, and never stop looking at the stars. Because we're Trekkies, and that's what we do. Live long and prosper, and see you next week.